I'm here for another episode of Book Talk Tuesday, actually on Tuesday this time. So this week, I'll be talking about culinary fiction and memoirs. So there's a wide range of foodie books, from culinary mysteries that usually have really punny titles, general fiction that features chefs or bakers, diners, and great home chefs as characters, memoirs, literary cookbooks, like there's a Game of Thrones cookbook and a Little Women cookbook, and so many others. So some of the fiction and memoirs also include recipes, which is extra fun. And today I'll be talking about just a small sampling of these titles, but you can find a longer list that we've created through our catalog on our Hardesty Library Reads account, and I'll post the link to that in the comments along with the titles and authors that I'll be talking about today. So first, I have Life from Scratch by Sasha Martin. So Sasha is a local writer and food blogger who began a journey with her husband and daughter to travel the world right from their own kitchen. Over the course of 4 years, she cooked meals from every country in the world and blogged about her experience. Her work was noticed by National Geographic, who contracted her to write a memoir about her experience. But as she began writing, her editor kept wanting her to dig deeper into what it was that drove her to cooking and to set such a daunting challenge for herself, like cooking the world. So as she began to write the memoir, she began to unearth some traumatic moments in her childhood. Her single mom was nurturing of her cooking adventures, but she had a very unconventional unconventional parenting style that led to Sasha and her older brother spending time in and out of foster homes. But cooking was something that got her through childhood and into adulthood, and ultimately anchored her in Tulsa, where she began her challenge of cooking the world. So Martin seamlessly weaves together the recipes into her text in a way that enhances the story. Her descriptions of meals are very lavish with imagery and elegantly written, and it leaves you hungry and inspired. So the next book I don't actually have with me, but I'm going to tell you about Kitchen Yarns, Notes on Life, Love, and Food by Anne Hood. And this is a delightful book. I finished it in one day. And she mostly writes fiction, but she does have another collection of essays about the personal stories that are behind some of her fiction, as well as the books that shaped her love of literature. But in Kitchen Yarns, she uses the food of her Italian-American family, to take you through her memories, both happy and sad. She reflects on how food helped her deal with the grief of losing her older brother and the sudden death of her 5-year-old daughter, as well as the food that strengthened her connections with family and friends. The recipes play more of a connecting role in this book than they do in Life from Scratch, as there is a story around each dish that she describes. She covers her childhood, teenage years, all the way through 15 years of being a flight attendant before falling into writing. This book will draw you in with Anne's humor and heart and make you want to read her fiction as well. And I recommend starting with The Knitting Circle. So the next memoir I have is From Scratch, not to be confused with Life from Scratch. This one is a memoir of love, Sicily, and finding home by Tembi Locke. Tembi Locke is an actress that you've probably seen in as a featured extra on TV shows like NCIS Los Angeles and SWAT and Castle and many, many others. Last year, she published a memoir of her love story to a Sicilian man she met while studying abroad in college. She details the ups and downs of navigating an interracial, cross-cultural romance. And his traditional Sicilian family disapproved of their relationship from the beginning, but the couple married after 2 years of a long-distance relationship and eventually moved to Los Angeles, where they adopted a daughter. Locke movingly describes the process of grieving and finding solace during 3 summers in Italy after her husband dies from a rare form of cancer. Locke and her daughter spent these summers cooking with her husband's widowed mother in Sicily, making family recipes, and some of which are in the book, and experiencing the close-knit community. Locke's raw and heartfelt memoir is uplifting for any reader, but especially those who have lost a loved one. The audiobook is beautifully read by the author herself and is definitely the way that I recommend experiencing this book. So the next 3 books that I will be talking about are fiction. And the first one I do have here, and you may recognize it for other reasons. It is Chocolat by Joanne Harris. It is the book that the movie of the same name was based on, starring Juliette Binoche and Alfred Molina. So it's a story about a quiet French village whose inhabitants are kind of stirred up by the appearance of this exotic stranger who sweeps into their town. Her name is Vienne Rocher, and she and her daughter open a shop that specializes in exquisite chocolates. And they open their store across from the Catholic Church in the town at the beginning of Lent. So, needless to say, the priest is not happy about this, especially when she announces that she's having a chocolate festival on Easter Sunday. But the townspeople slowly come around and realize that they need a bit more joy in their lives. So it ends up only being the priest who finds himself on the outside and still refuses to submit to the chocolate's siren song. But Harris's writing is lush and engaging with beautiful imagery and hints of magical realism that will sweep you away. Next, if you are wanting a sweet, familiar, comforting rom-com, then The Coincidence of Coconut Cake by Amy E. Reichart is for you. So Lou is a chef of her own French restaurant, which is her dream come true. And on her fiance's birthday, she bakes him a coconut cake and goes to surprise him at his apartment, only to find him in a compromising position with another woman. So heartbroken and off of her cooking game, she has a terrible night in the kitchen at her restaurant, which leads to her staff giving bad service and a bad meal to an anonymous food critic who writes a scathing review that plummets her business to the brink of closure. Later, at a pub, Lou meets a British transplant named Al, not Owl, who's another foodie that she drunkenly offers to show around Milwaukee to show him the best parts of it. And so he agrees, and they early on decide not to talk about any work-related things. But as their friendship progresses from casual acquaintance to maybe something a little bit more, their connection with food may run a little deeper as well. It's a quick read. I also read this one in a day, and I really enjoyed the amusing tone and the conversational writing style between the two main characters. So the last book I have for you this evening is Kitchens of the Great Midwest by J. Ryan Stradle. So this one is told from multiple perspectives of quirky and colorful characters and spans a couple of decades in the story. The central character is Eva, who at the beginning of the story is a baby who's being raised by a single father who's a chef. So he ingrains in her a very sophisticated palate, and she learns the culturally rich stories behind a series of Midwestern dishes while becoming the star chef at a legendary restaurant. But most of the story is told from the characters within her orbit. So, which creates a very unusual and intriguing structure to the novel that almost feels like short stories and is reminiscent of Olive Kitteridge. If you're looking for something different with well-developed characters and engaging writing, then give this book a try. And Stradle's newest book, The Lager Queen of Minnesota, is also a bit of a foodie book. It is about a talented baker running a business out of her nursing home who reconnects with her master brewer sister at the same time that her pregnant granddaughter launches an IPA brew pub. So that sounds exciting as well. So those are the books that I have for you this evening. Be sure to check out the link after the video has aired, and I will put the titles and the authors of the books I talked about this evening. So I hope you have a good one, and I will see you next week. Bye, friends.